A significant development is now emerging in the investigation into the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. Just hours ago, on March 10th, a statement was released that has sent a tremor through the entire true crime community. A retired FBI special agent published a post on X that commanded the full attention of everyone following this case. Her name is Jennifer Coffender, and for years, she operated from within the Federal Bureau of Investigation. She possesses an intimate understanding of how these investigations unfold. She comprehends the meaning behind law enforcement's silence. She knows the profound difference between a case that is growing cold and one that is building toward a critical detonation. And what she posted was not mere theory. It was a question that appeared to contain its own chilling answer. She wrote, wondering why Sheriff Nanos keeps turning away proven, very capable civilian search experts like EquuSearch and the real Cajun Navy. Is it because an arrest is imminent and they already know what happened to Nancy? So they don't want to waste the valuable resources of these groups? She then added 4 words that are now echoing across the internet. Half glass full. Hoping Ellie is getting closer. This is not the idle speculation of a social media commentator. This is a former FBI agent, an individual who has commanded investigations of this exact nature, interpreting the public posture of law enforcement and drawing a stark conclusion from her observations. And what she observes is a sheriff who is turning away offers of help, not out of apathy, not due to incompetence, but possibly because he already knows how this ends. Tonight, we will deconstruct every single piece of evidence that seems to support that very conclusion. Every investigative signal, every expert interpretation, every data point suggesting this case is not fading away. It is converging. Before we analyze the full weight of what Coffender has implied, it is essential to establish exactly who Jennifer Coffender is and why her assessment of this case carries more authority than almost any other voice in the national conversation. Coffender is a retired FBI special agent. She is not a media personality, nor a criminology professor detached from the realities of a field investigation. She is a former bureau agent who has worked from inside the very institutional machinery that is now pursuing Nancy Guthrie's abductor. She has been meticulously tracking this case from its inception, posting her analysis publicly on X, speaking to Newsweek, and appearing across national broadcasts. And unlike the voices who trade in sensationalism, Coffender has remained consistently specific, consistently measured, and consistently willing to state when developments are cause for concern, just as directly as when they give her cause for hope. When the unidentified vehicle captured on a Ring camera near the time of the abduction had not been located by law enforcement, she stated publicly that this was concerning. When the DNA challenges were confirmed by Sheriff Nanos, she addressed their implications head-on. She does not spin the facts. She interprets them. And right now, she is interpreting something in the decision to decline assistance from the United Cajun Navy and EquuSearch that she simply cannot ignore. Let us talk about what precisely happened with these civilian search organizations, because this is the catalyst for Coffender's bombshell post, and it deserves to be understood in its entirety. The United Cajun Navy is not a disorganized group of enthusiastic amateurs. It is a serious, professionally structured, grassroots nonprofit organization with a documented record of contributing to major search operations across the nation. Its vice president, Brian Thrasher, appeared on Crime Stories with Nancy Grace to detail what they had offered Sheriff Nanos. It was a full operational package, a detailed 41-page operational plan. It was comprehensive, including thermal drones capable of detecting heat signatures in the desert terrain at night, a deployment of 25 trained canines, and coordinated desert grid sweeps led by experienced personnel who have conducted operations in precisely this type of environment. This was not a vague offer to help. It was a specific, detailed operational proposal, submitted formally to the Pima County Sheriff. Sheriff Chris Nanos did not respond. Not a yes, not a no, not even an acknowledgement. Silence. The sheriff's office, when pressed by reporters, issued a statement that said, "We appreciate their concern and we all want to find Nancy, but this work is best left to professionals." That final phrase, "best left to professionals," allows for 2 possible interpretations. The first is simply bureaucratic defensiveness, a sheriff protecting his jurisdiction, a law enforcement official who does not want civilian interference in an active case. The second is the very interpretation that Jennifer Coffender arrived at on March 10th. That law enforcement is already in possession of knowledge that the public does not have, that the search phase, The physical ground-level sweep of the desert, with drones and dogs, may no longer be the primary operational priority, because the investigation has moved from finding a victim to identifying a suspect, from searching to closing in. Let us stack every other piece of evidence that supports Coffinder's conclusion, because the refusal of the civilian search groups is not the only signal. It is simply the most recent one. Signal number 1. Sheriff Nanos himself used the words "definitely closer." During an interview broadcast on the Today Show, Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos made a direct statement to NBC News, asserting that investigators were now definitively closer to identifying the suspects captured in the surveillance recordings. This wasn't a matter of being possibly closer, or simply moving in a promising direction, or even making incremental progress. The word he chose was definitely. However, that specific language drew a critical response from one former FBI intelligence analyst, Jennifer Dobler, who dedicated 13 years within the Bureau to intelligence collection and analysis. In a statement to Newsweek, she characterized the sheriff's comment as atypical for law enforcement and warned it could be counterproductive if it led the public to relax its pressure on the investigation. But another interpretation exists. A far more telling reading was offered by a different former FBI official, who explained to Newsweek that the phrase "definitely closer," especially when paired with a reference to hot leads, carries a very specific internal significance. When experienced investigators declare they are closer and allude to hot leads, it typically signifies a critical shift. They have progressed beyond sifting through a sea of random tips and are actively narrowing the field through meticulous verification, sophisticated digital tracing, and forensic analysis. They have moved past sorting and are now narrowing. This is not the vocabulary of an investigation that has gone cold. It is the vocabulary of a funnel that is tightening. This brings us to signal number 2, the structure of the task force. In the initial weeks following the incident, the FBI's operational footprint in Tucson was immense, involving hundreds of agents and a 24-hour command post operating nonstop within the city. That conspicuous, large-scale response has since contracted, with the primary command post being relocated from Tucson to Phoenix. Yet, here lies a crucial detail that has been almost universally misreported, with the contraction being perceived as a retreat when, in fact, it signifies the exact opposite. 4 Pima County Sheriff's Department detectives, alongside a sergeant, have been formally integrated into an FBI task force, stationed full-time at the FBI's Tucson field office with the exclusive mandate of working the Nancy Guthrie case. 4 detectives and 1 sergeant, assigned to a full-time, dedicated task force. This is not the organizational architecture of a case that is winding down. It is the framework of an investigation that has filtered out the noise to isolate the signal. The operation has evolved from a massive general search into a precisely calibrated team focused on specific, actionable leads. Coffinder, in an interview, provided a stark description of this new structure. She called it a red-hot case, with a force of up to 100 agents, analysts, and Pima County officers, among other law enforcement, all concentrating their efforts on the most viable leads. Red hot, not cold, not even cooling, red hot. This leads to signal number 3, the return of Annie Guthrie's vehicle to her family. This particular detail, which surfaced through Coffinder's own analysis, has not been given the profound consideration it warrants. During the preliminary phases of this inquiry, authorities impounded multiple vehicles connected to the case, among them the one belonging to Annie Guthrie, Savannah's sister. That specific vehicle has now been released back to the family. In the lexicon of criminal investigation, such an action implies one of 2 scenarios. Either the vehicle contained no evidence of value and was deemed irrelevant, which is unlikely, or, and this is the far more compelling interpretation, investigators have already meticulously extracted every fragment of potential evidence from it and no longer require it to be held in official custody. They have secured everything it had to offer. The forensic piece of the puzzle it provided has been fully absorbed into the broader analytical picture, and so the vehicle is returned. Signal number 4 comes from Jason Pack's analysis of the FBI's return to canvass the area. Pack, a retired FBI special agent who played a pivotal role in the investigation's first weeks, famously described the discovery of the Nest camera footage as akin to finding a needle in a haystack. He recently commented on the Bureau's decision to revisit Nancy Guthrie's neighborhood for a renewed round of door-to-door inquiries. He assessed it as a good sign, explaining his reasoning with a clarity that merits a direct quote. Pack stated that when agents initially canvass an area for doorbell and surveillance footage within the first 48 hours, their timeline of events is still a rough sketch. But these timelines gain sharpness as crucial data, like cell phone records, begins to arrive, as purchase data from Walmart is meticulously analyzed, and as the suspect's clothing is traced back through complex retail supply chains. The timeline constricts, and suddenly, a statement from a neighbor that appeared inconsequential 3 weeks prior can become the critical missing link. A neighbor's answer, once dismissed as irrelevant, can suddenly become pivotal. Pack is describing what is known as the investigative process of retroactive significance. Evidence gathered in the chaotic opening days of an investigation frequently fails to reveal its true importance immediately. Data requires time for processing. Records must be subpoenaed and dissected. Forensic findings are not instantaneous, but as each new layer of verified information is added, as the timeline sharpens from a blur into a high-definition image, details that once seemed disparate begin to snap into place. The FBI's return to that neighborhood is not a symptom of desperation. It is an indicator of precision. They are going back because they now know exactly what to look for within those camera recordings and inside the memories of those neighbors. They are returning to collect it. Signal number 5. Coffindaffer's own identification of the suspect's most unique and recognizable features. This is the one detail that every single person following this case needs to comprehend with absolute clarity. Coffindaffer Uriel, an expert who has meticulously analyzed the doorbell camera footage and whose professional background gives her unique insight into the forensic value of such evidence, offered a chilling assessment of the masked assailant that should not be taken lightly. Her conclusion was stark. He is profoundly identifiable. The eyebrows, the mustache, his manner of dress, the pinky ring he displays, an individual recognizing these markers and coming forward, she contends, represents the single most critical lead. Let us now dissect each component of that assertion. The eyebrows. Even when obscured by a ski mask, the subject's eyebrows remain discernible in the captured video. Their distinct shape, their density, their pronounced arch. Then, there is the mustache, which the FBI has officially confirmed to be black, glimpsed just beneath the lower fringe of the mask, a specific physical attribute that dramatically narrows the field of potential suspects. His manner of dress, this goes beyond the backpack and mask to encompass the overall presentation, the particular fit of his clothing, and the precise placement of his weapon's holster. These are details that speak to a background of training and a defined personal style. And then, the pinky ring. This adornment is visible through the suspect's thick, protective gloves in one of the photographs officially disseminated by the FBI. Sheriff Nanos himself confirmed its presence, stating, "People have circled and said, 'It's a ring.' I see it. I see a ring worn on the pinky finger. This is far from a generic physical characteristic. It is a highly specific personal accessory, one that someone familiar with this individual would recognize in an instant." Uriel's point is therefore critical. This suspect, for all his calculated efforts at concealment, has left behind a constellation of identifiers in that footage, enough for someone who knows him to view those images, and know with certainty who was standing on Nancy Guthrie's porch. Indicator number 6, the $1.2 million psychological pressure cooker. Retired FBI agent Maureen O'Connell articulated the impact of this reward with a potent metaphor that has since become embedded in the public discourse of this investigation. She observed that if more than one person is involved, which she believes to be the case, they are now trapped inside an air fryer. And it's just who's going to jump out first. An air fryer, $1.2 million, $1 million originating from the Guthrie family, $100,000 from the FBI, an additional $100,000 donated anonymously, plus the '88 crime reward. That sum is now on the table, a life-altering incentive for anyone with knowledge. And Uriel has been explicit in her professional opinion of how this case will ultimately fracture. She conveyed to Newsweek, "I think the number one way this case is going to be solved, in my opinion, is somebody coming forward that knows him. You know, a girlfriend that gets angry at him, or a family member that finds some sort of moral compass, or wants that $1.2 million and finds that is worth it to go ahead and betray their loved one. That is not a vague hope. It is, in fact, a pattern documented throughout the history of criminal investigation. Cases of this nature, meticulously planned, Sophisticated abductions, involving at least one person with operational experience, seldom remain secret indefinitely, precisely because they demand coordination, preparation, communication, and the involvement of other people. An individual who assisted in the planning, an insider who furnished crucial information, a person who drove a vehicle, an associate who provided help in the aftermath, every single one of these people is a potential cooperating witness. And at one point, $2 million. The incentive to become that witness is extraordinary. Former FBI agent Andrew Bringiel, who now directs a private security consulting firm, corroborated this analysis from a prosecutorial standpoint. He explained to Newsweek, "These cases are solved when the subject makes a mistake. Often, all it requires is for one conspirator to become disgruntled, or to decide that he or she wants out of the entanglement. One conspirator can trade the mess for the reward. The pressure is on, and it has been intensifying for 6 weeks." Indicator number 7, the Walmart backpack convergence. Sheriff Nanos has identified the Ozark Trail hiker pack, the specific 25-liter backpack worn by the suspect, as one of the most promising leads in the entire case. And what investigators have done with that lead is both methodical and exhaustive. They have secured from Walmart the complete purchase records for every Ozark Trail hiker pack sold over the past several months. Every single transaction, every store, every date, and every method of payment. If that backpack was purchased with a credit or debit card at any Walmart in Arizona or anywhere else in the nation, that transaction exists within a database, and the buyer's name is attached directly to it. Beyond sales records, investigators have been meticulously scouring surveillance footage from Walmart store cameras throughout the region. Every camera, at every register, in every store where this model of backpack was sold, it is a monumental data mining operation. But it is an operation with a finite number of conclusions. Either they will locate the transaction and link it to a name, or they will determine the backpack was purchased with cash, possibly at a self-checkout, or acquired through an anonymous resale platform like eBay. Nanos has confirmed the eBay scenario remains a possibility, but he also confirmed something more. He stated there is still information that authorities have not shared with the public. The pivotal question remains: what information are they holding back? That phrase, "still information not shared," coming from the lead investigative official in this case, is anything but insignificant. It is a calculated message that the public version of this investigation is a carefully constructed narrative, and the most critical elements are being withheld from view. The 8th indicator, the convergence of digital footprints. Retired FBI agent Jason Pack depicted the digital forensic landscape in terms that reveal why investigators are cultivating a quiet confidence. This growing assurance persists despite the lack of a public arrest. As cell phone data comes in, as Walmart purchase records are meticulously analyzed, and as the suspect's clothing is traced back through complex retail supply chains. Each of these 3 investigative currents, the phone records, the Walmart data, the retail tracing, is flowing simultaneously toward a single point. In this world, digital records do not lie. Every device that was powered on in the Catalina Foothills neighborhood on the night of January 31st and into February 1st left an indelible electronic echo. Tower pings, connection histories, and geolocation logs are all permanently stored by service carriers. The FBI has already compelled the release of those records through federal subpoenas. A specialized team of digital forensic analysts is now engaged in a painstaking comparison, sifting through every device that was present in that neighborhood and cross-referencing it against every device that appeared there in the weeks preceding the abduction. Their focus sharpens around January 11th, the day a neighbor named Aldine Meister witnessed a suspicious man conducting what he described as surveillance near the home. A specific digital signature caught their attention. Any device that materialized on January 11th, only to vanish and then rematerialize precisely on the 1st of February, was immediately isolated for scrutiny. Of paramount importance was any device that was a ghost in the network, an electronic signal with no prior history in the area. Such an anomaly was automatically elevated to a primary target of the investigation. An analysis of this magnitude, leveraging the immense data resources of the FBI, is not a process that takes years. It requires methodical work, and that work is underway right now. The complete picture that Cadaver, Pack, O'Donnell, and every other credentialed investigative voice on this case has assembled points in a singular, unwavering direction. This is not a declaration of certainty, nor is it a guarantee, but it is the profile of a case that is steadily contracting, its focus narrowing, its parameters closing in. It signifies a task force that is focused and deeply operational, and a digital forensic pipeline running on multiple, parallel tracks. It is a psychological pressure cooker, superheated by $1.2 million and 6 weeks of relentless FBI intensity, designed to squeeze every single person with knowledge of this crime. It is a sheriff who is now confidently turning away offers of civilian search parties. And it is a retired FBI agent, one who spent her entire career constructing these exact kinds of cases, watching from the outside and declaring the glass half full, hoping the end is getting closer. That is not the language used by someone observing an investigation that is going cold. That is the language of an expert who recognizes the distinct shape of an investigation in its final approach. There is one more thing, the chilling precedent for this exact pattern. The very case that Jennifer Cadaver herself has cited repeatedly as the template was the hunt for Bryan Kohberger. 4 students, murdered at the University of Idaho. A suspect who planned with extreme care, left almost nothing behind, and moved with unnerving confidence through the following weeks, believing his identity was secure. Then, the DNA results came back, the cell tower data converged, and on a January morning in 2023, roughly 5 weeks after the murders, law enforcement appeared at his parents' home in Pennsylvania. They went through the household garbage. They found a simple Q-tip, and Bryan Kohberger's confident invisibility was over. 6 weeks into the Nancy Guthrie investigation, DNA is now being processed. Her cell phone records are being meticulously analyzed. The Walmart purchase data is in hand, and a retired FBI agent is publicly suggesting that law enforcement's behavior is mirroring that of a team on the verge of an arrest. The Kohberger case reached its conclusion in the 5th week. We are now in the 6th. If you know who the masked man on Nancy Guthrie's porch is, call 1-800. Call the FBI right now. If you have seen those distinct eyebrows, that mustache, that pinky ring, that specific way of carrying himself on anyone in your life, the $1.2 million reward is yours. Anonymous, confidential, immediate. Follow this story closely, because when this case breaks, and Jennifer Cadaver believes it will, you need to be here.